Welcome to the first of many guides to come. This is the guide, and today we'll be talking about shading in pixel art, especially for beginners and even advanced pixel artists as well. I will be sharing my thoughts and experiences on how to shade and easily shade using the cube. For example, I'll be using the cube to break down basically the three main aspects that I think exist in pixel art, and I'll be starting with two easy examples, and the third one is a little bit more complicated, but using the same principle, it's the same process, and you should be able to shade in your different styles that you're going for. So the first tip, or the first explanation I'll give, is on 2D platformers or side-scrollers. For example, a good game it does this is Terraria. It also is it's a 2D platformer or a side-scroller, and the way that it does the shading is, or the way you can do shading in a 2D platformer or side-scroller, the thing to keep in mind is basically it has two sides. So two sides, you have to pick your light source first, and okay, let's say we use this for example. So if this blue dot right here is our light source, and I think I can just move it over a little bit. If this blue dot here is our light source and it's coming from that direction, then, and you have something like an orange cube, for example, you can first draw your cube and fill it in, and after filling, actually I think we'll make this a lighter color, yeah, something like that. And after drawing your cube, then the next thing to do is simply to draw another cube but with a darker color, and you fill that in. And actually I think we'll make this dark part a little bit less, yeah. So yeah, basically that's pretty much it. It's as simple as that, just drawing two rectangles on top of each other. The principle or process behind this is that the light source is coming from this direction, and so the lights will fall on this surface here before falling on this surface here. And with that in mind, it means that, or shading for example, especially with cubes, I'm using a cube because it's the easiest to explain with light sources. As you make more complicated figures and more organic figures, you may have a different or longer time shading, but it's the same principle of having a light source and then having a side that you pick which receives the most light, and then a side that receives the least amount of light. And it's the same, I'd say, with a top-down view. For example, a game that also does this really well is Pokemon, the Pokemon series, all the way from the earliest stages with the earliest stages, and then the GBAs, and then the Nintendo DS, and so on and so forth. But it's pretty much the same example. I'd move the light source now to the top just to have a better understanding of it. And what you find, or what's usually the case, is that with a top-down view, for example, they do have this where the light source is coming from above, so you'd see more of the top basically, and you would have the top usually in the very brighter light. Actually, you can even make this as bright as that. And then what you'd find most of the time is that the bottom of the the bottom of the object is usually in a darker tone, so usually something along the lines of this. So because the light source is coming from the top and falling down, this part over here receives the light first, and then this part receives the light. So it's not too hard to understand, but yes, it can be difficult to implement. And as you see, I'm using just very simple shapes of drawing rectangles over each other because it's just as simple as that, just making rectangles over each other. And it's the same principle. You want to know, first you want to pick where your light source is coming from, and then you understand, okay, if this is where the light is hitting from, then which parts is the shadow, and that's how you easily apply it. So for the last and final one that I said was going to be the most complicated, I'd say that's the isometric view, and those are present in games like Final Fantasy and I believe Fire Emblem. They, especially in RPGs, and you'd see that I'll have to change the way I do this, but basically what isometric means in pixel art is when the views are basically the exact same on either side. So it's not different, it's not a little bit tweaked, it's the exact same. So what you see on one side is the exact same view you'd see on another side. And I'm just gonna quickly draw this isometric view from the top and then give the explanation after. As you can see, it's not too difficult, but it can be tricky at times. The rule of thumb I usually use is having the view to be 2 pixels wide, so if it's not 2 pixels wide, it can cause some issues. Okay, I think I know what happened over there. And yeah, okay, yeah, finally got it. So it's basically that is the same principle. I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this. And then put it over there. I'll explain later on in a later guide how I quickly did that, but basically what I did was just copy and then duplicate it, and after doing that then I pasted it and rotated it around. So even with this, it's the same principle as you would see. I'm just gonna quickly do that and do that. Okay, so with this principle, it's the same thing. I will even move the light source over. So let's say the light source is happening from, yeah, above, as with the top-down view. You want to use the same principle of thinking about it, where the top will be the lightest part of it. And what's interesting about the isometric view is that it has the most three-dimensionality out of the 3 views combined. And so we're going to be using even more colors. So here would be where the light hits the least or second, and then the darkest part would be where the light heats the absolute least. So as you'd notice, the top gets the most light, and then the side over here gets a little bit of light, and then here gets the least amount of light. So that's why here's the darkest, here's a little bit lighter, and here is where the lightest part is. I will be making more guides in the future explaining and even more in-depth tutorials about how to create these shapes, especially with the isometric. As you can see, I'm still working on it, but I will make more guides in the future easily explaining how you can make these for your pixel art or for your games or whatever. So I'll hope to see you then. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye.